Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And good show today. Before we get started, let's just recap some of the news this week in sports. We've got the NBA playoffs starting. The Bucks and the Lakers lost the first game, the number one seeds of their series. Very exciting upsets there. NHL is finishing the round of 16. They had their play-in round, and now it's technically the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But there's only a couple series still going. Not a lot to talk about there. There'll be, once the new matchups are set up, so maybe we'll talk more about that next week. And for those of you that tune in to listen to me talk about Aussie Rules football, which is probably nobody, they're getting ready to start their playoffs out there, and we won't talk about that this week at all, but maybe next week. And, of course, the CFL decided to cancel their season. They were trying to get a loan from the Canadian government to fund their shortened season, but the league relies on fan attendance for the overwhelming majority of its revenue. I would say probably 80% of its league revenue is based upon fan activities, going to the games, tailgating, things like that. And it's just not a viable business model, unless they get a huge television contract or something like that, which they don't really have. So tough for me because it's my favorite football league, but we still have the NFL, and we're going to go forward with the NFL today and continue our previews with the AFC North. And this weekend in racing, we have NASCAR at Dover, which is not one of my favorite tracks. But we also have the Indy 500 in August. Because of the COVID, they postponed the race. And very exciting race. It's one of my favorite sporting events to watch. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it. And I think there's a lot of value in this race. And I think you'll see that reflected in my picks. So stay tuned for a little chat about the Indy 500. But before we do any of that, let's painfully go through last week's picks and update my bankroll. And I got crushed in, I don't know what adjective I would like to use, but it did not go well for me last week. I lost all of my picks. I had 3 hockey picks, as you can see. The Coyotes' money line. The Coyotes have been eliminated. They played some very close games, but they could just not score enough. And that was minus 17. But, the odds, I believe I got plus 165 on that game. The odds were very good. It was a value bet. Didn't pan out. Not too upset about that one. The Flyers, I took them as a favorite, minus 141. And they got crushed 5-0 by the Canadians. And they still have not eliminated the Canadians, although they lead 3-2. Carter Hart got chased in that game. They had that was their first loss of the Stanley Cup playoffs. They won all 3 round robin games, and they've won 3 against the Canadians, and then this is one of the 2 that they lost against the Canadians. It was a very disappointing loss, very frustrating. And then the Hurricanes money line, I was very surprised that they kept Mrazek in. And then they went to Reimer, and then they went back to Mrazek, and then they went back to Reimer. And I feel like that was a mistake. I feel like after Reimer won his game, they should have kept him in. Not complaining. Boston, even without Pasternak, was able to get the job done. Good for them. The value was on the Hurricanes. I thought this game was basically a coin flip, but the Hurricanes were on the plus side. But I did not win any of my hockey bets. And then I had Collingwood in the Aussie rules, minus 3.5. That's basically a coin flip because a goal in Aussie rules is 6 points. And they got hammered. They lost 100 to 44. and it was just an awful performance. And they're very close to the end of their season, so it could be silly season situation out there, but they did not play well enough to even compete, and it was a very frustrating game to watch. And then in NASCAR last week, they were on the Daytona road course, and if you did watch this event, this is the first time that NASCAR has raced this road course, and there were a lot of unknowns. I watched the Xfinity race on Saturday, and it was really fun, but cars were going off the road, going off the course every lap, and the Cup race they were a little bit better, but not much. Harvick was in contention until he got punted, and he was out. Boyer ran in the top 10 pretty much the whole race. I think he finished 8th. He was as high as 2nd or 1st, but Chase Elliott was just too good. He has 3 consecutive road course wins, Chase Elliott does right now. So obviously you have to crown him the current road course king. Minus 17. If you do the math, it's minus 85 to the bankroll. Just a devastating week. The new bankroll is now $430, and dividing by 30, as we always do, that is going to make our bet size $14 going forward. So big step back. Hopefully we can get a nice chunk back at some point, but it probably won't be this week because my bets are going to be pretty limited this week because I'm only betting on the race. So, but before we get back into motorsports, let us start talking about football. And today's preview is the AFC North. For those of you who don't know all the divisions, the AFC North is the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Baltimore Ravens. That's north to south, so I did it geographically. And this has been a very competitive division, and I expect it will be this year. Obviously, the Bengals are in a rebuilding mode. The Browns have had front office turmoil for years, and hopefully they'll have some stability. The Steelers are aging team on the offensive side of the ball, and the Ravens are firing on all cylinders. We'll talk a little bit more about them. And, I'm going to talk about the rosters and, of course, the betting odds for the futures being to win the division, the AFC, or the Super Bowl, and how these teams relate to those odds. I'd like to talk about the players, so if you guys are into fantasy, you might know what names to look for if you have, a particular need in one of your fantasy teams. So let's get started, and let's start with those Cleveland Browns. You can see the odds here to win the division, plus 474, or almost 5-1. I think that's a little low. I think it's going to be tough for them to win this division, although I would not be surprised to see them in a playoff spot. To win the AFC, 16-1, and to win the Super Bowl, 33-1. Again, I think that's kind of low. This team will have to take some big steps to compete for a championship, I think. So we're going to start with the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. I feel like last year was not, I don't want to say it was a step back, but it was inconsistent. He's got to show growth on the field. I feel like he's shown growth off the field. He's not, he plays with, I think he's learned the term is playing within yourself. This is the guy that will come out on the field dancing and playing with high emotion and wearing his emotions on his sleeve, showing frustration and finding ways to rub it in to opponents. And I feel like there's a combination of him. He can make, from the first snap he took in a real NFL game, you could see that he could make reads and make throws. The big question is, can he make adjustments throughout the game? Can he mesh with the coaching staff? And can he get on the same page with all of his vast weapons? And this is what I see on the offensive side of the ball. Cleveland, fantasy people are going to talk about this team a lot because they just have players that have huge potential Obviously, Baker Mayfield could put up huge numbers if he gets the passing game going. Nick Chubb has put up, really good game numbers, but has he been able to stay healthy for a whole season? I don't think he has. I haven't looked at his stats recently, but maybe 1 year out of the 3 or so that he's been in the league that he's been able to stay healthy for most of the year, and I think that year he didn't play all that much. They have Kareem Hunt backing up Nick Chubb, so they have good depth there. And then for wide receivers, you got OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, and as your top 3 wide receivers. Austin Hooper and David Njoku is the tight ends, which gives them a lot of flexibility. They could really innovate with this skills squad, running shoots, 2 tight end sets, RPOs. There's a lot of potential with all of these players. Solid receiving core. Now, what concerns me is 2 of the left side offensive linemen have opted out of the season. They're both left guards. And that's Baker Mayfield's blind side. He's throwing from the right, and then pass rush coming from the left behind him can hit him from the blind side. So that concerns me a lot. Now, Baker is a pretty mobile quarterback. He's not as tall as some of the other ones, but that concerns me. They're going to have to establish the run. It's a term I hate, but in this case it really does apply to really give their quarterback some more time and get play action going. Now on the front 7, they've got just a lot of depth running a 4-3 defense. 2 of the offensive outside linebackers are injured at the moment, but this team does have a lot of depth on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. They've got lots of cornerbacks and safeties on the roster. The secondary's got to step up and keep the big play potential down and keep the games from getting into shootouts. When Cleveland has the ball and a lead or is within a score, they're a very dangerous team. When this team is down 2 touchdowns, they can score, but their offense becomes very predictable. And that's something that has to change. We'll see. They don't have any new as far as I don't really know who the OC is, but they do have a new head coach, Kevin Stefanski, a former Minnesota offensive coordinator. And if you recall the Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, they were a run-first team, and Stephon Diggs was not happy about how much he was getting the ball when he was in Minnesota. So I hope that doesn't happen with this wide receiver core. But if they have success running the ball, it's going to make it a lot easier to throw the ball. And it'd be interesting to see how committed this team is to the run. Obviously, Nick Chubb is a great short yardage running back, and he's broken off some big runs in his career. But we'll see where this goes and what type of mix they come up with. Interesting team. I don't feel like there's a lot of value in any of these bets here. The AFC bet is probably the juiciest of the 3, but I don't think I would put money on any of them. So let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we've got to win the division plus 413, 4-1. To win the AFC, 12.5 to 1. And to win the Super Bowl, 25 to 1. And it all starts with Big Ben. He is back. He tore 3 tendons in his elbow or something like that. 38 years old, coming back. We'll see what he's got left in the tank. You've got James Conner as your featured back, and Samuels is the backup for him. Jalen Samuels. I don't know if Conner goes out. I don't know if Samuels can carry that load. Maybe they find somebody in the draft or as a UDFA to come in and be a depth player. Not really sure, but your main receivers, Juju Schuster-Smith, Deontay Johnson, James Washington. And then Vance McDonald is back at tight end, but they've also signed Eric Ebron. Now, Ebron started in Detroit and played himself into a huge contract. And then he went to the Colts, where he was rather ineffective and somewhat injured, but he ended up being more of a decoy, and they would go to Jack Doyle a lot. And I don't know what this guy, if he's bought into the Pittsburgh way or not, but we'll see how he pans out. I have question marks there. Veteran, healthy offensive line with little depth. I think they have 8 offensive linemen on the roster, but they're all quality, healthy, just aged, so a lot of this is going to have to do with staying healthy, that all of these guys, Connor, Roethlisberger, and the O-line are all going to have to stay healthy. And but the defense is the strength of this team, and they're going to shine, this 3-4 defense they have. T.J. Watt is a budding superstar in the league, rivaling his brother. And I would argue that this is the best defense on paper in the division, that Baltimore might be the best coached defense in the division, but this defense, as far as the physicality and the athleticism, is probably the best in the division. Only 3 safeties on the roster, so if I'm playing against the Steelers and one of their safeties goes down, I'm looking to throw the ball deep. Again, these are adjustments. Will teams make these adjustments if these types of injuries or happen, or suspensions or whatever? These are the things I'm looking at. Which teams will notice these things? Those are the teams that you want to find bets on. And I think this is the last hurrah for the Steelers. This is their last. This could be a playoff team, easily be a playoff team. But this is probably their last hurrah without an infusion of youth on the offense, which means a starting quality lineman, a new quarterback, a second, a good depth running back. The receivers are fairly young here, so the receivers, are good to go. But this team needs an upgrade after this year. Ben, who knows? I mean, if the team gets behind, he'll throw for a ton of yards. But I have a feeling that if they play one-possession games, they're going to try to play a lot of close games, run the ball, short passes. He's not going to be the fantasy option that you're going to be looking for this year. But I wish him well. The Steelers fans are very supportive of their franchise. Excuse me. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is interesting to me because I felt like this is one of the most rebuilding teams in the league. San Diego comes to mind. A few other teams come to mind. Jacksonville. So to win division 25-1, I think that's low. I think this should be at least 30-1, if not 40-1. To win the AFC, 46-1. To win the Super Bowl, 104-1. Boy, oh boy. You've got, it all starts with big throw Joe Burrow, the quarterback from LSU that just won the national championship. It seemed like he didn't miss a throw all season last year, and he had a lot of amazing plays. If he can be that accurate in the NFL, he is going to be a force. However, I feel like the expectations for this season are metered very, very low. You can think of great quarterbacks like Peyton Manning and John Elway, just to, off the top of my head, and they had very, poor in terms of winning percentage seasons. They had fourth quarter comebacks. They had flashes of brilliance in their rookie seasons, but losing campaigns. And I think you're going to see the exact same thing here, especially in this division with the opponents they have in this division. That could be 6 losses right out the gate. So we'll see what happens. But Joe Burrow, hopefully he starts and gets experience. There's a mix on if he's going out there and just getting mauled and getting killed, then maybe you put him on the bench. But there's 2 schools of thought on whether or not getting these guys playing time right away is good for their careers. You'll have to see how it goes. Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard in the backfield, 2 quality NFL running backs there. A.J. Green seems wasted here. He was out all last season, and he's back. But, I mean, he's a veteran. I feel like there's got to be some trade value for this guy, assuming he passes a physical and he's healthy to get you some parts. He could be a mentor for other receivers coming up, but I don't know. Maybe he makes too much money. Maybe it's just not a financially viable situation. But, I feel sorry for the guy. He deserves to get, another playoff shot, I think. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are your other 2 top receivers. Boyd, at one point, I believe, played tight end, but he's a slot receiver. And there's nobody that really stood out to me at tight end here. It's hopefully there'll be more blocking than catching passes because of the pressure that's going to be put on the quarterback. There's an injury or an opt-out on both sides of the offensive line here, which doesn't bode well for the quarterback at all. I would not hesitate to opt out if I was on the Bengals locked into a long-term deal this year, because it's going to be a tough year. And also there's an injury and an opt-out on the defensive line, which makes their lines that much weaker against that much 2 really stout defenses in this division. Starting quarterback William Jackson is also injured. Could be a while for him to come back. So what this all boils down to here is you have lots of replacement level players getting playing time, and that is going to result in a lot of losses. However, the replacement players getting a lot of playing time, you will really get to see what kind of depth the team has. You will get a good look at, which players could start in the league and which players probably could not start in the league. And, that can provide value in a game, that it depends what the lines are. I mean, is this team going to be a 20-point underdog to some teams? Is it going they don't like to even give out 14 points anymore these days in the NFL spreads. So we'll see what happens. But it's going to be a long year for the Bengals. I'm sorry, Bengals fans. But hopefully your quarterback is the real deal and he will lead you to future glory. I feel for you guys being a Bills fan. And then on to the Baltimore Ravens. To win the division, minus 225. And both the Steelers and the Browns were about between 4-1 and 5-1. And the Ravens are minus 225 to win the division. Boy, that's pretty low. I don't know if I would bet money on that. To win the AFC, they are the favorites at plus 303. And to win the Super Bowl, they are the league favorites at plus 581. Somebody must have put some money on the Ravens. Current league favorite, Lamar Jackson, quarterback for the Ravens, is a unique weapon. There's only a couple other quarterbacks in the league that can rival what he can do. Mahomes, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, but without the size. He is, a running back. He's a thrower. He's a scrambler. He can create on broken plays, just like Mahomes. Josh Allen really hasn't shown that broken play ability yet. He needs to step it up a bit. Running back crew headed by Mark Ingram. They ran 3 running backs. They rotated the running backs a lot, especially when they're in the lead. This is just good coaching, in my opinion. Do not look for great fantasy stats here other than Lamar Jackson. But this team is going to wear you down. It's going to wear you down on both sides of the ball. Marquise Brown, Miles Boykin, and Willie Snead are your top 3 wide receivers. And Andrews is the starting tight end, but I didn't see much from him last year. Obviously he's going to catch his share of balls, but there are a lot of short throws. This is really a run-first team. But they do have to keep the defenses honest and throw down the field from time to time. The big red flag for me is starting center Matt Sakura on IR, but otherwise a deep offensive line. Now, I've read in some older sports betting books that the position that has the most impact on the line other than the quarterback is the center. And on a team that is focused on the run, the center is very important. If you are playing from shotgun constantly, a replacement level center is not that bad. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're handing the ball off to the quarterback from the snap, having that center. Now, of course, it's the beginning of the season, and the eventual replacement center will have a whole training camp to work with a quarterback. Shouldn't be a problem. But something to keep in mind if he's out for a long time. We have incredible depth on defense on this team. The roster's just stacked. The line and the linebacking crew and the secondary. Earl Thomas from the Legion of Boom leads the secondary. It's just, like I said, it was the best coached defense in the division. I expect them to continue very aggressive in the secondary, which allows the front seven to really put pressure on the backfield or concentrate on stopping the run. It's going to be a very difficult team to score a lot on. And Harbaugh, obviously the best coach in the division. He's the best coach in his family, in my opinion. John Harbaugh, he's already, he's won a Super Bowl. He's got to figure out how to beat Kansas City. And I'm sure he spent a lot of time this offseason working on that. But my caveat with the Ravens is this division is a tough division. It's not going to be an easy division to win. So when I see them to win the AFC, to win the Super Bowl, they're more of a favorite than the Kansas City Chiefs. I really struggle with that because it's very unlikely that the Ravens are going to get a bye because of the competition of this division. Who's going to get the bye in the AFC? Is it going to be Kansas City? Is it going to be Buffalo? Is it going to be the Ravens? Or is it going to be somebody from the AFC South like the Titans or the Texans? I don't know. But if I'm betting on a team to win the Super Bowl, if they get the bye, they get a home game before the AFC Championship. They get home field for the AFC Championship because there's only one bye. Then once they're in the Super Bowl, you can hedge if you think they're not going to win the Super Bowl. But their percentage of getting to the Super Bowl just goes way up if they're the number one seed. And it looks to me like it's either going to be Kansas City or Buffalo getting that this year. We haven't talked about the AFC East yet, but with the way things are shaping up out there, I really feel like Buffalo has a chance to get a bye. But the Ravens, I feel like I think these odds are awful. I feel like they're a good team and they're a Super Bowl contender, but boy, oh boy, they got to get through Kansas City. And if they have a tough division, they split games with Cleveland or they split games with Pittsburgh, they're going to Kansas City to play them. They're going to Buffalo to play them. It's not going to be easy. So we'll have to see what happens. So that's my AFC North preview this year. And as I'm running out of time, why don't we move on to the Indy 500? So for those of you that don't follow motorsports that much, the Indy 500 is the IndyCar series. It usually runs on Memorial Day weekend, and it was postponed because of COVID. So 33 cars, it's 500 miles, 200 laps. The cars go about 30 laps on a tank, I think, something like that. The biggest news since the last Indy 500 is the track and the race are now both owned by Roger Penske. The George family sold the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to Roger Penske. So he owns the track. He owns the race. And I got to tell you, there's a part, he's won more Indy 500s than any other owner. If there's anybody that's going to be ready for this race, it's going to be him. He's basically got unlimited track time, unlimited access to the track that the other teams just don't have. I feel like that gives him a bump up in the ratings of the odds here. Penske has 4 cars in the race. He's Mr. Prepared. His teams are always super prepared for whatever conditions are going to be, for whatever type of race it's going to be. If it's going to be a fuel mileage race, they're prepared. If it's going to be, a lot of passing, a lot of running at full throttle, they'll be prepared for that, a full mixture. So there are only 2 engines in the series, the Honda and the Chevrolet. And the Hondas were outstanding in qualifying. There's 2 ways you can look at this. If you look at the field, the first 13 cars, there's only 1 Chevrolet. The rest are Hondas. However, if you look at there's 3 cars in a row. If you look at the first 6 rows of the race, from the first row all the way to the 6th row, all of those cars ran 230 mile an hour qualifying. So they were all on the same 230 point something from spot number 3 to spot number 16. So even though the Hondas were better at qualifying, the difference in these cars, even with the different engine, is minuscule. And obviously there's some back markers that will not be a factor in the race, and they could not get that speed up to 230. But I feel like it's going to be overstated how much people say, oh, the Hondas are better. Well, they're better in qualifying, which is 4 laps. Now, going 200 laps, are they going to be reliable? Are they going to be better over long runs? Will the Chevys be better in a 30-lap fuel run than the Hondas? We don't know yet. We don't know. So Andretti on the pole. Andretti Autosport. Marco Andretti is the grandson of Mario Andretti. He's on the pole in the 98. He's a very good driver, but he's also very aggressive. He's finished second in this race before. He's never won it, but he has crashed a lot in this race. And he will have to learn to be aggressive, or he's going to have a lot of teamwork from his team. There are 6 Andretti cars, not Andretti drivers, but Andretti-owned cars in this race. They're the biggest team. Most of those cars are in the top half of the field. Obviously, they're going to be favorites to win. But I'm not a fan of Marco Andretti to win this race. It's a very tough race to win. You have to do everything right. You have to have your 5 pit stops without a problem. And, you got to get lucky on the cautions. And so in race trim, the cars are very close. When they qualify, they run 4 laps. There's hardly any fuel in the cars. They got certain kind of tires on them. When you're in full race trim, your fuel tank is full of 50 gallons of fuel, or however many gallons it is. You got sticker tires on the car that you got to heat up, and you got to make them last for the full run. These cars are going to be very close. And they also have something called push to pass, which I didn't write here on the screen, but push to pass is passing. You get 12 of them a race, or so many seconds worth of it, where it gives you extra horsepower to pass a car. And if the Chevys and the Hondas can run together close enough, they can use push to pass each other. And if somebody saves it till the end and they've got a lot of push to pass, they're going to be tough to get by. And certain drivers are only here to win. There are some drivers, their goal is to win the Indy 500, and they're not driving for points. They're not driving for a good showing. They either want to win or go home. And those drivers appeal to me if the odds are right, because they're going to do whatever it takes to win, and they're going to execute a strategy of being there at the end and trying to win the race. And there's some drivers that have really long odds that are there just to win the race. And as a matter of fact, let's quickly look at the odds for the Indy 500. And you can see Scott Dixon is the favorite, even though he's starting second. Then Marco Andretti at 8-1 for the pole sitter. And Rossi is Andretti Sport. Ryan Hunter-Ray, Andretti Sport. Pagano is and Newgarden are Penske cars. Will Power. And then Takuma Sato is it escapes me at the moment. Is he Ganassi? I can't remember. It's a Honda team. Herta is Andretti. Rinus VeeKay is a Chevrolet. Ed Carpenter has his own racing team. He's a Indianapolis local product. He was related to the previous owners of the track. And then you've got Fernando Alonso, two-time Formula One champion. He's here, one-shot deal just to win the race. And if you go down right below him, Helio Castroneves he's a three-time winner, wants to become a four-time winner. Fourth car with Team Penske. He's there just to win. That's all he wants to do. Those guys did not qualify great, but they have tons of experience. They know what it takes to win this race. I feel like they're going to be a factor. And then down below at 50-1, you got Tony Kanaan. You can barely see him. I'm going to push down here. There he is, Tony Kanaan, driving for the AJ Foyt team. However, I don't feel like they have their setup right. I don't. At 100-1, I'd probably take that bet, but at 50-1, I'm going to lay off it. So let me get back to my screen here, and we'll finish up with my picks for the weekend. And all I've got for you guys is my Indy picks. I love to watch this race. It's one of my favorite races of the year, my favorite sporting events. And I'm going a little bit heavy here, but you're going to see I got Takuma Sato in a Honda, former winner, 16-1. And I think he's driving for Ganassi. I can't remember. But he's on the front row. The other guys on the front row are 400 and 800. This is just an insane value. And then the other three cars I have are all Chevrolets. And they're all undervalued because I think the Chevrolets are not being represented in the odds. Ed Carpenter, former pole sitter, has led a lot of laps here, 25-1. He has a racing team, but this is his goal, is to win this race. Fernando Alonso, the Formula One champion, went from 25 to 28-1. I really like him to do well in this race. He did not have a great month. He crashed his car in practice and then qualified in the back of the field because obviously he was in a backup car. But I feel like in practice he's run near the front. He's going to be very competitive. And Helio Castroneves with Team Penske, they're always prepared. He knows what it takes to win, and he wants to win number 4. That's why he keeps coming back. So 33-1 is just great odds on that. So I'm going to put a half a unit on each. So I'm spending 2 units this week on these 4 drivers, and hopefully one of them will hit, and we'll get a nice boost to the bankroll, and we'll be able to talk about it next week. So that's going to do it. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you liked my preview. Next week I'll do another preview, and we'll get back to hockey. If I find something interesting in baseball or basketball, we'll talk about that. And then maybe Aussie Rules playoffs. We'll see. I think I got 2 to 3 shows before the NFL season starts in earnest. So we'll see if we can't get all those previews done. And enjoy your summer. A lot of people on vacation. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Have a good time. Enjoy sports this weekend. And we'll see you next time. So let's go get some winners, folks. Play that outro for you. Take care. Have a good night.